It's all yours.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Avi. So quick introduction. Hi, everyone. And thank you for joining this event. My name is Nick Zorin, and I'm a community resident living in Manhattan Beach in southern Brooklyn. Tonight's town hall will be focusing on something that is especially important for those who live in New York City and the surrounding areas. That is the upcoming elections in New York City coming up. So this summer on June 22nd, there will be a primary election for mayor and other important positions, such as New York City Comptroller. And the primaries will be followed by a general election on November 2nd. Tonight, we have a special guest who is running to be New York City's next Comptroller, Assemblyman David Weprin. Hello, David, and welcome.
Thank you, Nick. Pleasure to be here.
Great. Great to have you. Could you perhaps spend a little bit of time talking about your background, experience in the political arena, maybe touch upon your personal life and family, and talk about why you're running for New York City Comptroller?
Absolutely. Thank you, Nick. I'm running for Comptroller to put the needs of working and middle-class families front and center, and to protect the New York City pensions of over 700,000 retirees, retirees like my 91-year-old mother, who is a Cuban Jewish immigrant to this country. She came here in 1938 at the age of 8. She didn't speak a word of English. She went to our public schools. She became a teacher, a public school teacher, and she now has a teacher's pension that she's relying on. I want to protect her pension. I also will take the fiduciary responsibility of being the chief financial officer and the person who has a seat at the pension board and is in charge of investing the pension funds very seriously. They should not be done on political considerations. They should be done on getting the best returns on the assets, and I'm committed to that. Another thing I've been talking about everywhere I go, and I'm the only candidate in this race that has been doing that, is that we're a 5-borough city. We should be a 5-borough controller's office. And I'm committed to helping bring back the economy and small businesses through those borough offices. I will open up an office in Brooklyn, in Staten Island, in the Bronx, in Queens, as well as Manhattan. Manhattan already has, the only office. We really should use those offices as economic empowerment zones, working specifically with the community, trying to bring back small businesses, trying to bring back financial services to underserved communities, and dealing with our young people on financial literacy. The audit function is something that's a crucial function. And I've also been talking about auditing outside contracts of the city of New York. About 20% of the $92 billion budgets are outside contracts. And there's a lot of waste in those contracts. And I'm committed to working to reduce that waste and to actually have a lot of that work done by city employees. And with the money that's saved, for example, the Department of Education has the largest outside contracting budget, about $8 billion. And those outside contracts, a lot of them could be done by city employees, as well as we could use some of those savings to hire more teachers, to hire more guidance counselors, to hire more social workers, which are going to be needed during the pandemic. But I have the relevant finance experience, both public and private sector, to help bring the city back from what's the worst fiscal crisis in the history of the city of New York. I served as chair of the Finance Committee of the City Council for 8 years. When Mayor Bloomberg came in, we balanced 8 consecutive budgets. I served during 2 fiscal crises. One, we had a multi-billion-dollar deficit right after 9/11. Then we had a 2008 recession, Wall Street recession, where we had that fiscal crisis. We turned a multi-billion-dollar deficit into a surplus, and I'm committed to doing that. And I think our borough-based offices will help in that. I also served as Deputy Superintendent of Banking for New York State for 4 years, or Deputy Commissioner of Banking, regulating financial services and financial institutions. But I also had a private sector municipal finance career on Wall Street with major firms, DLJ, Kidder Peabody, Payne Weber. So my legislative experience, 8 years in the city council, now 11 and a half years in Albany, will do us well, but also the relevant finance experience.
Wow, that you have a very extensive and very impressive experience and background, and thank you for sharing this with us. So you did mention the the importance of this election, right? The importance on New York City. So how is this going to affect? Why is it so important that everyone votes, and how is this going to affect the community in this specific election?
Well, this is a Democratic primary that I'm running in June 22nd, but the Democratic primary will actually determine who the next mayor is going to be and who the next controller is, and most of the city council members, because we're a very Democratic city, and I haven't even heard any names of any Republicans that will be running for controller. We've heard a few names on the mayoral side, but not on the controller side. So that's why I think it's important. Whether you're whatever political spectrum you're on, if you live in New York City, I think it's important to register as a Democrat, because that's going to really decide the Democratic primary who the next controller is going to be. And we're going to be in the worst fiscal crisis that the city of New York has ever had, worse than the 1975 fiscal crisis, worse than the post 9/11 fiscal crisis when I came into the city council, worse than the 2008 recession, all put together. And I want to make a contribution and use my background and my borough offices to help bring back the city, help bring back small businesses. And I'm committed to that. And that's one of the things I'm going to be focusing on. I've also had represented for 8 years in the council and 11 years now in Albany, one of the most diverse districts in the city of New York, very immigrant rich. About 60% of my constituents are first-generation immigrants, like my mother was or is. And we have a large Russian Jewish population as well. And I think I've been fighting for language access, interpretations, and making sure that all our diverse communities are represented and have access to what they need. So I've been committed to that at the local level, in the city council, and in the assembly. Now I'm committed to do that citywide as the next controller.
Right. Thank you. So you did mention that a lot of your constituents and people living in the area in 5 boroughs, a lot of them are immigrants, and you did note Russian community. So. Living in Manhattan Beach, I just moved here with my family, and before that, we lived on Shipsy Bay for about 15 years. So Manhattan Beach really borders Shipsy Bay and Brighton Beach, which are relatively big Russian communities. So perhaps you can touch upon a little bit about on your record as an advocate for Russian community and their issues, and maybe highlight successful legislations that you fought for and won.
Well, I've fought for language interpretation and Russian included in that. I've been endorsed by Steve Simbrowitz, who has a very large Russian population in his assembly district, as well as Bill Colton, who endorsed me, who also has a large Russian population. I've worked with them on language access to make sure that we have interpretation into Russian in all our documents, in all our access. But I've also been a huge supporter of religious diversity. I'm the prime sponsor of a law that's a historic law called the Religious Garb Law, which really allows for people to observe their religion and the way they want to dress. And nobody should have to choose between observing their religion or their culture that's important to them and their employment. So, I've been fighting for religious freedom, but also diversity in our immigrant community, and to helping new immigrants. As I mentioned, my district is about 60% first-generation immigrants, and I hope to be a champion for immigrants in all 5 boroughs as controller.
Right. Perhaps let's switch topic a little bit, which I think is really really important. Public safety, right? Over the last year or 2 years, I've been reading a lot and seeing, watching on TV and on radio that the crime in New York City has significantly increased. Crime on public transportation, crime on the streets. What role does Comptroller play with regards to public safety in our city?
Well, the controller is one of three citywide elected officials, so they have a huge bully pulpit. Of all the candidates in this race, and I go to forums almost every night. I actually had a forum right before this with my opponents. I'm the only one talking about supporting the police and not significantly cutting the police budget. This whole defund the police movement, I think, has gotten out of hand, and I think that has led to a spike of crime in a lot of neighborhoods and gun violence in a lot of neighborhoods. And I don't like that trend. The city council cut police headcount significantly in the last budget. They delayed 2 police classes, eliminated one of the major police classes. They're going to have a new police class and new police test, but it's a smaller class. And we've lost thousands and thousands of police officers through people leaving because they really feel disrespected, that's become a problem in the city. So, I'm committed, I support police reform, but at the same time, I think it's important, and transparency, but I think it's important to recognize that, most of our hardworking men and women in the police department work very hard, are honest, are people of integrity, and they should not be vilified, and their hands should not be totally tied. So I think it's important that we not cut police budgets. We can work on more community policing. In my area in Queens, we have very strong police precinct councils, as I know you do in Brooklyn as well. It's important to have a good working relationship between the community and the local police department, and I will certainly strengthen that. But I will not support the defund the police movement, and I think we should be trying to bring our police headcount up higher. We also know there have been a lot of hate crimes. Recently, it's been against the Asian community, but it's also been against the Russian community in the past. It's been against the Jewish community in the past. It's been against the South Asian community as well. So there, on and on. But I think it's important that we strengthen hate crime bureaus and hate crime prosecution in the police department, because a hate crime against one of us, one group, should be a hate crime against all of us. And it's important for us to speak out whenever there's, hate crimes against any one ethnic group or specific background.
No, thank you. And I appreciate your views and your support. And I do have several friends in the force, and I also completely do not support the defund the police movement. And I think we as a society and a community, we need to support our first responders because they're there for us when we really need them, right, in tough moments. So I really do appreciate that. So let's move on to the next topic. Of COVID-19 and the impact it has had on our city, on our lives, on our communities, and specifically also on the real estate, right? So if if you go into Manhattan, or if you look around here in 5 boroughs, you see a lot of for lease signs on stores, or I hear a lot of people are moving out from New York, they're moving to Florida or other areas. And that has a significant impact on the real estate in the city, right? So the supply is still there, the demand is declining, so it can have a significant impact on the real estate, on people's lives as well. So when it comes to a comptroller, what can you do to help revive the real estate market in the city?
Well, what you can do is create more affordable housing. There is a program in the Comptroller's office called the Economically Targeted Investment. I'd like to be that, creating a middle-class housing for city employees. I'd like to target that because there are a lot of city employees that find it hard to live in the city because of the affordability. But the most important thing is to bring back small businesses. And I will have those 5 borough offices to help work specifically to bring back small businesses and try to get the economy going again. I think it's important, since we're a 5-borough city, we should be a 5-borough controller's office, and I'm committed to opening up those regional offices, which will be laser focused on helping communities, helping small businesses, and helping bring back the economy. Also, as we discussed with public safety, if there's a perception of public safety that has a huge effect on the real estate market, it has an effect on businesses, and it affects people leaving the city because of fear or perception that public safety is in danger. So I think it's important to make sure we have the resources, but certainly I'm committed through those borough offices, through the controller's office, to not only help us get back from this potential deficit each and every year in the budget, but also help bringing back the economy. And it starts with small businesses.
Right. Small businesses are essential for, I think, for our city, and they support a lot of families, a lot of people in our city. So what kind of specific things that you're looking to implement to help them rebound in this post-pandemic world?
Well, I actually just had a press conference this morning asking the governor, the mayor, the federal government to delay the implementation of congestion pricing, because small businesses have been devastated, and that's to charge vehicles, whether they be passenger vehicles from people that have to drive into Manhattan because they're not accessible to public transportation, like some of my constituents in Eastern Queens that don't have a subway, but really small businesses which have been devastated and rely on the free bridges for multiple deliveries. And on top of everything, with the reduction in their employees, with the reduction in their earnings, to have to pay for small deliveries that they can't always pass on, to people. That's why I'm urging to delay the implementation. I actually opposed congestion pricing that passed in the legislature 2 years. I voted against it, but I certainly think now is the worst time to implement it. And it was, fast-tracked by the federal government recently, and I think that was a mistake. And I'm committed to try to delay it as much as possible. So we're calling for a delay until at least after 2 years after the pandemic is over.
Right. Thank you. And how about the New York City economy as a whole, right? So small businesses are really, really important. But we need to revive, New York City, right? Before the pandemic, New York City was just full of, life and nightlife and Broadway shows and restaurants and all of that. What are the specific things that you'll be able, hopefully, to do to bring back? I want my New York City back. The pre-pandemic. It's sort of upsetting to see what happened in a course over a year of everything being shut down. What are your plans?
Well, I'm one of the first elected officials to urge the governor to open up the restaurants. I had a press conference when restaurants were shut, and actually Nassau County, which I border on, and Westchester County, which borders on the Bronx, and parts of New Jersey, which border on Staten Island and Brooklyn. To open up the restaurants safely, at least at 25% and then 50%. And that's documented that I was one of the first to urge that. We also have to bring back our live performances, our cultural institutions. It's opening up slowly now with the distribution of the vaccine. I think it's definitely can be done safely. More and more people are getting the vaccine. I've been vaccinated with my 2 doses, and I'm past my 2-week period. And I feel more comfortable going out, and I would certainly start going to shows and to movies and to restaurants. And I think it's important for the economy that's opened up. So I will do everything I can to help open up the city, and it may be gradually, but I think we can do it safely with cautions, with social distancing to a certain extent, and sometimes wearing masks. But I think the most important thing is to get that vaccine out to everyone, and I think the federal government is providing more vaccines. We have more vaccines, and I would guess over the next couple of months we will get close to herd immunity because more people are being vaccinated. I know there's still some people that don't feel comfortable getting vaccinated. I think it's important that everybody that wants the vaccine gets it, and that's the only way we're going to really get to herd immunity.
Right. No, I absolutely agree with you. Absolutely agree with you. We need to ensure that people feel safe, people can go out there, and of course the first step is for everyone to get vaccinated, and then hopefully we can bring back our city that all of us love so much. So perhaps we can talk a little bit about a different subject also. Talking about New York City, and what I've seen over the last few years is a significant increase in homelessness in New York City. So let's the mayor of New York City has a plan that he's trying to implement. Is to I believe it's called Turning Tide. What he's trying to do is to place our homeless population in congregate shelters, and this topic is actually very dear to me, and the reason is because there's a planned congregate shelter there's actually planned to be open in our area, and what we think as a community, we think that it's just not right. It's not right to treat our homeless this way, right? To place them in congregate shelter where they'll be living 10 to 15 people per room. It's just not the right way. It's not the most effective way to, and it's probably not the most efficient way to deal with homelessness. Also, at the same time, I looked at city's financials, and over the last let's say 7 to 8 years, the budget or the spending for Department of Homeless Services, it more than doubled. It went from $1 billion per year to last year was 2.3 billion. But what I've seen, on the streets of New York City is, more homeless. We need to think of the ways on how to reduce homelessness. What can we do? What can you, if you elected a comptroller, what would you be able to how would you be able to address this issue on shelters and homelessness in New York City?
Well, as you pointed out correctly, Nick, too much money in the city is being spent, on these homeless shelters and temporary housing of the homeless. We're talking billions of dollars. That's really not necessary. We could be, building affordable housing and making, transitional housing, permanent housing. Get rid of these homeless shelters. Get rid of some of the warehousing of homeless people in hotel rooms, which actually are more expensive than actually getting them apartments and providing needed services. A lot of them need mental health services. The comptroller is in charge of auditing agencies. This Thrive New York, which was headed by, the mayor's wife, the first lady, Charlene McRae, has been a disaster. It hasn't been sufficiently audited. It's become a boondoggle, and I haven't seen the results of dealing with people that are mentally ill, and a lot of those people are part of the homeless population. So I think we have to deal with some of the underlying problems. But I think the key is I've been opposed to these temporary shelters and this congregate shelters. And I think we really we can't ignore homeless people. We have to deal with the underlying problem and try to help them. But the way to help them is to get them the services they need and permanent housing that they need, as opposed to these congregate shelters.
No, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. Also, at the same time, when we look at, the organizations that manage the homeless shelters, the so-called nonprofit entities, we cannot be, fooled by their designation as nonprofit. They very much generate, real revenues, and their officers generate, they bring in real significant salaries. So when it comes to that, my question is, where's the incentive? Where's the incentive to, for these organizations to reduce homelessness? I was looking at this organization, for example, CORE. Their revenues in 2018, I think it was 60 million. And just several years back, it would be 15 million, and their officer is making, $500,000. So where's the accountability for it, right? Who's accountable, and why would these organizations be incentivized to reduce homelessness in New York City? I think is the other way around, because they would want to, generate more money. They would want to get more clients, and they would want to get more contracts from New York City.
Yeah, a perfect example is that homeless operator in the Bronx, Rivera, who the Times did a whole expose on, who was abusing homeless people, was abusing women and sexually assaulting women, and also had nepotism and misused public funds that were provided, and it was a real disaster. And that should have been audited by the Comptroller's office. Almost 20% of the New York City budget of $92 billion is outside contracts. And those outside contracts are often not audited by the Comptroller, and they should be. And had the Comptroller audited that particular shelter operation in the Bronx, rather than have the New York Times do it through an expose in the Times, we might have gotten to the root of the problem early. We might have investigated it. We might have made changes and prevented, all the abuse that went on. Not to mention, the billions of dollars of mismanaged money. So, I think it's important that the Comptroller's office audit some of these large contracts, audits, the entire contracting budget, outside contracting budget of the city. But that's where some of this waste and some of this fraud and abuse will be discovered.
Right. No, and I appreciate your answer on that, because it is, after all, it is taxpayers' money that goes into city's budget, right? And the money is being spent, and we want to make sure, as residents and taxpayers in New York City, that the funds are being appropriated wisely, and there's no sort of fraudulent activities. So I think that's really, really important. So when we talk about the subject, you specifically touched upon affordable housing. If we can perhaps talk a little bit more about it, how can you help as a controller, perhaps on rezoning laws? What can you actually do? You did mention as a controller, you are administering a pension, a significant pension for New York City. So is that something that you can potentially, part of it, invest into, affordable housing? So maybe perhaps you can talk a little bit about that.
Oh, absolutely. The combined 5 pension funds in the city come up to about over $240 billion, close to $250 million. And a lot of the pension fund money could be invested. As I started to say at the beginning, the most important function is a fiduciary one on the investment, and to see that the that you get the best returns on the assets, and so the city doesn't have to make up the difference. And we want to protect the over 700,000 pensioners. But having said that, we can make responsible investments in our communities in different areas. And the key, and I learned this on Wall Street during my 20-plus year career on Wall Street, is the key on the investment side is diversity. You don't want to place all your eggs in one basket. You don't want to place it all in equities or in stocks or in bonds. You want to diversify. And we definitely can invest in communities and housing. And that's an area that we can get good returns at the same time, do good things for the community. So the key, again, is diversification, but certainly investing in community, investing in affordable housing can be part of the formula for that diversification and responsible investments.
Mm. Absolutely. So it seems like you, as a controller, there's a lot of different issues and problems and all these different aspects that need to be tackled and managed and administered and deal with the city, 5 boroughs. There's just so many different things. So that's why it's I think it's really, really important for us to elect the right officials, to elect the right mayor, to elect the right controller, and really appreciate your answers. I think I agree with all of them. I think that they're right on point. So let's talk a little bit about your view on why do you think it's so important to vote? Please tell our participants on this town hall, why is it so important to vote this year and as a Democrat?
Absolutely. We lag behind many countries as far as, the percentage of people that vote. And we have democracy here. I know in the former Soviet Union, where a lot of your constituents and, your community residents come from, they did not have independent free elections, and they often didn't have a choice. But we do have a choice in this country, in this city, in this state. And it's so important because it really affects your lives in so many different ways, whether it be in the city council, whether it be in the state legislature, whether it be as mayor, as controller, as public advocate. So it's very important to exercise that. And so many of our immigrants to this country should appreciate that. And our Russian brothers and sisters should appreciate that, especially how important it is to vote. And that's why the Democratic primary is so significant, because whether you vote for Democrats or Republicans in the general election, it's often in New York City, in the case of New York City, it is the decision that makes the difference, because whoever usually wins the Democratic primary, with a few exceptions, but I don't think that'll be the case this year, will be the ones that'll be the incumbents and the office holders. So whether you're conservative, whether you're liberal, whether you're moderate, it's important to vote in the primaries, because you get to decide who the candidate will be, and very often who the next office holder will be.
Right. Thank you very much, David. I just want to make a note. Over time, it's 7:40, and I think it's a good time for us to see whether there are any questions. And we do actually have one question right now, and that question is specifically to investing into affordable housing. So, what financial returns can taxpayers get or expect by, say, investing tax dollars into affordable housing? I know this question might be, a bit difficult, but perhaps you can speak in general terms.
Well, there are federal programs where we can get federal subsidies that will help make the projects work. I think it's important also to partner with private developers, and it can be a win-win with a public and private partnership. But the key is the returns, and we have to make sure that they're responsible investments. But I think we need more middle class housing. I think we can target through the economic targeted investment program in the controller's office, where you can invest up to 2% of the pension assets in economically targeted investment. I think we should focus on middle class housing and housing for city employees, because I think we want our public servants to live in the city. We want our police officers to live in the city if they can afford it. We want our firefighters to live in the city. We want our teachers to live in the city, and sanitation workers and all other city employees. So I think it's important that we provide housing to them. And I would use that economically targeted investment not to build homeless housing per se, but to build affordable housing for our city employees and middle class in the city.
Good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Do we have any more questions? Let me take a look. No, there's no more questions. Well, okay, so we can wrap up. So David, thank you. Would you like? Do you have sort of any closing remarks that you would like to direct to our participants here on Town Hall?
Sure, I'd love that, Nick. Again, Controller's office is a little known office. It's a big office. It's almost 800 employees. So it's not a small office. It's a very large office. All of those 800 employees are headquartered in downtown Manhattan. I'm committed to changing that, to put employees in every borough, to open up borough-wide offices, which will better interact with the community, the various communities in our city, and help the city come back through helping small businesses and economic empowerment of those various communities. And again, I'm the only candidate that has the relevant finance experience, not only public sector, as chair of the finance committee for 8 years in the city council, as deputy superintendent of banking for New York State for 4 years, but also in private sector finance experience, having served for over 20 years on Wall Street in municipal finance, floating bond issues for healthcare, for hospitals, for schools, for infrastructure needs, something that's directly part of the function of the controller, to invest our long-term capital projects, to do bond issues and refinance debt to save money on the interest rates throughout the city. So I think my finance experience, both public and private sector, will go a long way to being the next controller and to help bring back the city. So I'd love to have the support of the Russian community, the Brooklyn community, and every other community in the city. We're very proud of our diversity. Our strength is in our diversity. I'm very proud to represent so many immigrants in the city. And that's really what built our city, is our immigrant. I'll also say, while my mother came from Cuba and came here, my father's family is from Russia. And he came here, he was born here, but his parents, were from, I guess, what would be called Belarus now.
That's where I'm from.
So I certainly have, ties in my own background to the Russian community, and they're a very important constituency in a growing community in our city. And I would hope to advocate for them as well as all the other communities in our city.
Good. David, I want to say thank you for joining our town hall. I think we had a wonderful discussion. Thank you for answering all of my questions, and I wish you best of luck in the upcoming election. With that, I think we can wrap up the call. Thank you again, David, and thank you to everyone who joined our town hall.
Thank you, Nick, and thank you for allowing me to do this.
Thank you very much.